Did you know that for decades the flow of steel between the United States and Canada has been more than just a trade statistic? It's been the backbone of an integrated North American manufacturing powerhouse, a symbol of a symbiotic relationship unlike any other. Cars made in Michigan often contain steel forged in Ontario. Components for skyscrapers in Toronto might originate from mills in Pennsylvania. This seamless exchange, built on decades of trust and mutual benefit, has long been taken for granted. It's a partnership so deeply woven into the economic fabric of both nations that the thought of its unraveling seemed almost impossible. Yet, here we are, on the precipice of a trade showdown that threatens to redefine this historic alliance. The current tension is not merely about economics, it is about sovereignty, it is about strategy, it is about the future direction of Western alliances. The idea that this integrated supply chain could be weaponized in a political dispute sends a chilling message across the global stage. For generations, the US-Canada border has been a model of peaceful commerce, but today, it has become a line of contention. When the foundational elements of such a strong partnership begin to crack, it forces us to ask a difficult question. If this relationship is vulnerable, what does that say about the stability of the global trading system? The tremors from this dispute are being felt far beyond the steel mills. They're being felt on factory floors. What we are witnessing is a fundamental stress test of the post-NAFTA era. That era is now governed by the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, the USMCA. This agreement was meant to solidify and modernize trade, providing predictability. Instead, it is becoming the battleground where old assumptions are being challenged. This shows even the most carefully negotiated pacts are susceptible to the shifting winds of national politics. The steel showdown reveals fragility when agreements collide with populist demands. And when they collide with a renewed push for economic nationalism, the stakes could not be higher. This is about real jobs. This is about the competitiveness of our most vital industries. This is about the prices we all pay for everyday goods. The steel girders that build our cities are caught in the crossfire. The frames of the cars we drive are caught in the crossfire. The machinery that powers our economy is caught in the crossfire. The current crisis was ignited by a surprisingly simple, yet profoundly disruptive demand from former President Donald Trump. His proposition, delivered with his characteristic flair for bold declarations, was for a complete tariff-free, quota-free flow of steel aluminum into the United States from Canada. On the surface, this might sound like the ultimate expression of free trade, a principle the US has long championed. However, the context and the unspoken conditions attached to this offer are what turned it from a proposal into an ultimatum. It was a demand for free trade on his terms, and it came with an implicit threat. Accept this arrangement, or face the consequences of a less predictable and likely more punitive trade environment. This push is not just about a single commodity. It represents a pivotal moment in the evolution of Trump's America First doctrine. In his view, the existing trade framework, even under the USMCA he helped negotiate, does not go far enough to serve American interests. He sees the Canadian steel industry, which receives various forms of government support, as an unfair competitor. His demand for unfettered access is a strategic move designed to pressure Ottawa into aligning its industrial policies more closely with Washington's vision. By framing it as a take-it-or-leave-it offer, he is challenging the very foundation of a partnership built on negotiation and mutual respect, replacing it with a more transactional and confrontational approach. Canada's refusal to immediately accept this proposal is where the story truly gains its significance. To an outsider, rejecting a free trade offer might seem counterintuitive, especially from a nation so economically dependent on the United States. But for Canadian leaders, this was not a simple economic calculation. It was a question of economic sovereignty. Accepting the demand without any reciprocal guarantees or mechanisms to prevent market-distorting practices would, in their view, leave their domestic steel industry vulnerable. They fear that a completely open border for steel could lead to a flood of products, potentially undercutting their own producers and creating a dependency that could be politically exploited down the line. The situation marks a profound turning point in US-Canada relations. For decades, the two countries have managed their trade disputes through quiet diplomacy, technical negotiations, and dispute resolution panels. This new, more public and aggressive posture changes the rules of the game. It forces Canada into a corner, where it must choose between capitulating to American pressure or standing its ground and risking economic retaliation. This high-stakes standoff is no longer just about the price of steel, it is about whether the world's most successful trading partnership can survive a fundamental clash of political wills and competing national interests. The current tension is manifesting primarily through the threat and counter-threat of tariffs. These are not just taxes on goods, they are potent economic weapons. On the American side, the administration is leveraging the possibility of reimposing steep tariffs, steel, aluminum, citing national security concerns under Section 232, first used in 2018. The argument, a robust domestic steel industry is vital for national defense. Reliance on foreign imports, even from a close ally like Canada, poses a risk. The policy aims to protect American steel mills and their workers from perceived unfair foreign competition, encouraging domestic production. For Canada, the stakes are immense and immediate. The Canadian steel industry is deeply integrated with the American market. Over half of its production is typically exported to the United States. The imposition of tariffs would be a devastating blow. Production cuts, plant closures, significant job losses, Hamilton, Sault Ste. Marie. Canada has prepared its own list of retaliatory tariffs, designed to inflict economic pain on key U.S. sectors and create political pressure. A classic move in a trade war, risks escalation. This tariff tightrope creates a delicate balancing act. For the U.S., protecting an industry must be weighed against broader economic costs. Tariffs on Canadian steel increase costs for American manufacturers, automotive sector, construction sector. Higher costs can lead to inflation, cars, appliances, new buildings. It also risks alienating a critical political and strategic ally. The challenge? Support domestic workers without crippling industries, or sparking a wider, more damaging trade conflict. At stake, the economic prosperity built on a stable North American trade environment. The uncertainty is chilling business investment. Companies reliant on cross-border supply chains are hesitant to make long-term plans. Can protectionist measures lead to long-term prosperity, or do they create a lose-lose scenario where both economies suffer? The answer has profound implications for workers, consumers on both sides of the border. The history of United States-Canada steel trade has been a story of remarkable integration and cooperation. For over half a century, the two nations have operated less as foreign competitors and more as partners within a single continental market. This relationship was formalized under the 1965 Auto Pact and later expanded under the Canada-United States Free Trade Agreement and NAFTA. These agreements eliminated most tariffs and created a highly efficient system where raw materials and finished goods could cross the border multiple times before reaching the final consumer. This integration allowed for specialization, economies of scale, and a level of collaboration that made North American manufacturing globally competitive. Really a true model of industrial synergy. However, this history is not without friction. Disputes over softwood lumber, dairy, and yes, steel have periodically flared up. The most significant recent precedent was in 2018, when the Trump administration first imposed Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum from numerous countries, including Canada. This move shocked Ottawa as Canadian leaders felt they should have been exempt due to highly integrated defense and industrial bases. After tense negotiations and retaliatory tariffs, a deal was reached in 2019 to lift the measures, but it left a lingering sense of mistrust and showed the special relationship was not immune to protectionist pressures. The latest round of negotiations, which began earlier this year, represents a departure. The current United States demand is not just temporary, but a push for a permanent restructuring of the trade relationship for steel. Washington's negotiators argue the 2019 agreement did not fully resolve underlying issues pointing to surges in certain Canadian steel products. They are pushing for a deal that would grant the United States unilateral authority to react to such surges without a lengthy dispute process. This is a red line for Canada, which insists any agreement must include binding, impartial dispute resolution, a core principle of rules-based trade. These developments are reshaping the industrial landscape in real time. The talks have shifted from managing trade flows to a fundamental debate over what constitutes fair competition. Canada argues its government support programs are comparable to those in the United States and are essential for competing against unfairly subsidized steel from other parts of the world. The American side sees these programs as a distortion that harms United States producers. The result is a diplomatic impasse where decades of collaborative history collide with a new era of assertive economic nationalism, leaving the future of this vital trade pact hanging in the balance. Beyond the high-level politics and economic theories, this trade dispute carries a very real human cost. For the thousands of workers in the steel industry, the uncertainty is a daily source of anxiety. In towns like Hamilton, Ontario, or Gary, Indiana, the steel mill is more than just a place of employment. It is the heart of the community, supporting generations of families and a wide network of local businesses. The threat of tariffs or production shifts means the potential loss of well-paying jobs that have been a pathway to the middle class. A worker who has spent 25 years in a mill cannot easily pivot to a new career, and the closure of a major plant can devastate a local economy for years to come. The impact extends far beyond the steel mills themselves. The intricate web of North American manufacturing means that a disruption in the steel supply chain sends ripples across countless other industries. Automakers in Ohio and Ontario rely on a just-in-time delivery system for steel components. Tariffs and border delays break this system, increasing production costs and threatening assembly line jobs. The construction industry, a major consumer of structural steel, faces similar challenges. Higher steel prices mean more expensive infrastructure projects, office towers, and residential buildings, which can slow development and reduce employment for construction workers, electricians, and plumbers. This is the domino effect of a trade war in action. For consumers, the consequences may seem less direct at first, but they are just as real. The increased cost of steel inevitably gets passed down the line. The price of a new car, a washing machine, or even a canned good can rise as manufacturers adjust to higher raw material costs. This is essentially a hidden tax on everyday life. While proponents of tariffs argue they protect domestic jobs, critics point out that they do so by making goods more expensive for everyone, disproportionately affecting lower and middle-income households. The debate, therefore, is not just about producers, it is also about the financial well-being of every citizen who buys a product made with steel. Ultimately, the greatest cost may be the erosion of stability. Businesses thrive on predictability. When the rules of trade can be changed with a single policy announcement, it creates a climate of fear and hesitation. Companies become reluctant to invest in new factories or hire more workers when they cannot forecast their costs or access to markets. This chilling effect on investment can stifle innovation and long-term growth, harming the competitiveness of the entire North American economy. The price of this uncertainty is paid by workers who lose opportunities, consumers who pay more, and industries that fall behind in a competitive global market. A pivotal moment in this escalating dispute came last month during a press conference in Ottawa. Standing before a backdrop of Canadian flags, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau delivered a statement that was both measured in tone and firm in its message. In direct response to the American demand for unrestricted access to the United States steel market, Trudeau stated, "Canada will always seek free and fair trade, but we will not agree to a deal that hollows out our industrial capacity and exposes our workers to unfair competition. A partnership is a two-way street. It is not about one side dictating terms to the other." This was a clear and public rejection of the American ultimatum. This statement was significant because it moved the conflict from the closed doors of negotiation rooms into the public arena. It was a declaration that Canada would not be intimidated. By framing the issue as a matter of fairness and partnership, Trudeau was speaking not only to a domestic audience but also to an international one, positioning Canada as a defender of rules-based trade against unilateral pressure. The phrase "a two-way street" became a rallying cry, encapsulating the Canadian position that any new agreement must involve mutual obligations and respect for each other's sovereignty, rather than a simple capitulation to the demands of a larger neighbor. The reaction from the Trump camp was swift and predictably sharp. A spokesperson dismissed Trudeau's stance as weak and accused Canada of continuing to take advantage of the United States. In a social media post, Trump himself wrote, "They talk about partnership, but they subsidize their steel and dump it into our country. Not anymore. All we want is a fair and free market. They can either give it to us, or we will make sure our great American steel companies are protected." This exchange of public barbs crystallized the conflict, transforming a technical trade negotiation into a highly visible political battle between two leaders with fundamentally different worldviews.